Good morning, everyone. My name is Jennifer Felton with GoldenCare, and I want to thank you all for joining us here today. We have some guest speakers, Marc Glickman and Vivenzio, I hope I said that correctly, from National Guardian Life Insurance Company. We're thankful for them to join us here this morning and talk about their long-term care plan. So with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Marc.
Welcome, welcome. Thank you for taking the time this morning to attend the webinar. I will be talking about the National Guardian Life NGL EssentialLTC long-term care program, relatively new to the marketplace. We've been around for a couple of years now, and we're actually growing quite rapidly. This is the first new carrier we've had in about 10 years, so it's pretty exciting to have some traditional solutions, some unique features and sales ideas that we're going to present to you today. My name is Marc Glickman. I'm Chief Sales Officer for a company called Life Care Assurance Company, which has been in the long-term care business for 30 years. I'll tell you a little bit more about us when we talk about the NGL background, but needless to say, we focus on long-term care. I'm an actuary by background, so you'll see that coming through on some of the slides. I present the value of the plan and some budget-based approaches today. I have with me as well Vivenzio, who's Marketing Manager for Life Care Assurance Company. He joined us a few months ago, actually coming from a long-term care specialist background. So he's been in many of your shoes out there in the field. And if you do have any questions or requests about marketing, feel free to jot down his phone number or email address that you see on the screen, and feel free to email him as well. So today we wanted to focus on the EssentialLTC plan, but to take it from a little bit of a different perspective, more of a modern LTCI planning approach. And I've seen some of the recent webinars that you guys have attended on how to build affordable long-term care and budget-based approaches. I'm going to focus on that as well, but show you a little bit of a different spin with the software that we have that you can download. It's called Benefits Buddy. And I'm going to show you how to use Benefits Buddy, but we'll also send you a link if you're interested so you can download it and play around with it for yourself. And today we're going to focus a little bit on the sweet spots of the plan. We have a lot of different sales ideas and opportunities, and we're going to go through them today. Before I get into the product itself, I want to tell you a little bit more about National Guardian Life, and a lot of people ask us, why did they enter the long-term care marketplace? Well, their real business model is to focus on lines of business, in this case long-term care, that are underserved. And we know that long-term care has not had as many carriers in the last few years, and National Guardian Life, they saw an opportunity to partner with an expert in long-term care, Life Care Assurance, the company that we work for, and to do this in a way that can be sustainable. What I mean by that is we know that the products today, they're very prudent on the underwriting side. They can offer a lot of value in terms of the benefits that are produced. And so they said, hey, we can do this program as long as we have an expert helping us do the underwriting, helping us make sure that we're doing the product the right way. So Life Care, the company that I work for, which has been in the marketplace for 30 years, we have 220,000 policies that we administer for a variety of different companies. So we do have the background. If you do have any questions about the plan or the details of any of the writers, feel free to give us a call, and we'll help you walk through exactly what to expect. Now, National Guardian Life itself is an A- excellent rated company from AM Best, so they're well established in the marketplace. They've been around actually for over 100 years. They're a mutual company, so they're owned by their policyholders. And they have over $4.2 billion of assets. So just a very well-established company. I think you're going to have a great experience working with them. Now, we have this product available today in 46 states, but we plan to file it in all states. And just kind of to lead into that, this is our current state availability map that you can download in the agent portal of the website. I'll show you at the end where you can get access to the website and all of the product information. But we're currently available in all of the blue states that you see on the screen. The light blue states also have partnership available. We've released a number of new partnership states this summer, and we're releasing several more, so we should be available in even more partnership states soon. And we are actually filing for California right now, and we're working for approval. So that's the next state that I would expect to be available, hopefully in the next 6 to 12 months. We're also planning to file in New York. So that's a little bit of a longer process, but you can kind of see NGL's commitment to the marketplace because it does take a long time to file in New York, and they want to be available in all 50 states. As I mentioned, there will be new LTC partnership states available, and we are releasing new features. So if you're on our product announcement list, you'll see these updates. Our next release will be the employer group rate class, which is a unisex rate structure, which will be available at first in all of the compact states and New Jersey, which will allow you to do very cost-effective employer group situations, as few as one-person employer groups. So just think of a business owner, for example. You can do employer group plans like that. And again, if you want to have more information on anything here, just feel free to contact us, and we'll give you some more information about that. We're also committed to making the LTCI marketplace more modern, and that's through a lot of the support that we can provide to you. For example, we just launched an e-application. So you have a number of different ways to submit business to us. If you do virtual business, you can now do it exclusively remotely with an e-application process. We have this software, and I'm going to show you a lot of screenshots today from it, called Benefits Buddy. I'll do a very quick demonstration if we have time at the end, just to show you how it works. But it's a very creative, innovative way to visualize the value of a long-term care plan and to customize it for your client's unique needs and situations. We have a lot of marketing and training materials that will be available on the website, as well as we do what we call workshops, which is if you're interested in doing a client case study with us, we'll get you on the phone here with the screen share, and we'll work with Benefits Buddy. We'll work through the case with you and help you really figure out what are the most cost-effective benefits for Essential LTC for those clients. And then finally, if you've missed any of our webinars, we do a lot of webinars on a variety of different topics. Each topic is actually unique. We now have about 27 recorded webinars. It's on demand, available in the NGL website. You can listen to at your own pace as well. So I wanted to talk today about modern long-term care planning, at least from our perspective. What's most effective from talking to a lot of the long-term care experts out there, many of you guys probably on the phone line we've spoken with. And we look at recently some surveys that some of the carriers have done. This particular one was done through the Harris poll last year, and asked the question, what is the biggest consumer objection to purchasing long-term care? And one of the options was, I don't want to pay for something I may never need. Another option was, LTCI is too expensive. Another option was, I've heard negative things about LTCI. And they asked the consumers, what is the biggest objection? Here's what the poll said, and this is not too dissimilar from other polls that we see coming out all the time, which is still the number one reason people aren't choosing to plan for long-term care with long-term care insurance is they think it's too expensive. So I'm going to spend some time talking about this mentality, the psychology of this, but also we can design plans that are quite affordable, and many of you out there know that. Even if it's not for full coverage, getting partial coverage adds a tremendous amount of value. The second most important reason, though, is I don't want to pay for something I may never need. And this is where we're seeing some of the popularity of the hybrid plans out there. I'm going to show you in a few moments how you can take a traditional plan and position it to be very similar to the live, die, quit story that you see on hybrid plans, meaning that they have benefits regardless of whether they never use them for long-term care. Now, when we talk about negativity about long-term care, we do hear about that especially from advisors and agents out in the field. When it comes to consumers, never one of the top reasons that they don't get a long-term care plan. But we do have features on the plan to address some of the negativity. For example, if they Google search and they look for long-term care and they see rate increases as an issue, we do have features like single premium and 10-pay policies to address the negativity in long-term care as well. So we designed this plan in a modern way to make sure that we can address all of the reasons why people aren't doing long-term care planning. Now this was an interesting, this was a LIMRA study that's published every year, and it looks at the average price purchased for long-term care insurance. And this is per person. In 2004, I looked at this study, and the price was approximately $2,000 a year for coverage. Fast forward to 2016, it's a little bit higher. It's $2,500 a year. But if you actually look at that and you lay it over inflation, okay, and you can barely see the inflation line, it's the dark blue line, versus the industry pricing, which is the light blue line, because virtually the same is purchased today as it was 12 years ago, okay, when you consider, inflation adjustments. And what that means is that people are buying the same target premium. They're just reducing their benefits. right? It used to be that they'd buy lifetime benefits and 5% inflation protection. Today, people are buying 3 or 5-year benefits and 3% compound inflation protection to keep that price roughly in that affordability range. So keep this in mind when you quote plans. I would say at the start of it, if you don't know what your client's budget is, err on the side of caution and quote lower prices, and then you can talk to them about the value and work them up. And I'll show you this approach in a moment. But it's really more of a budget-based approach. So people can't afford long-term care. This is the price per person. So even if it's $2,500 per person, that's still $5,000 for a couple. We can design plans that are less than $1,000 for a couple. Okay, we can design plans that are very affordable. And again, we can hit the middle market with this product to make sure people have some plan in place. Okay, so what do we do when we're thinking about affordable long-term care planning? I usually follow this kind of 5-step process. First thing is I look at, talk to the client about the needs and consequences of not having a long-term care plan. Remember, it's more about their family than the likelihood of care. If you say there's a 70% chance of needing long-term care and they're very healthy, they're likely to think they're in the 30%. So rather than saying that, just say, let's get a plan together for your family. And usually that's what resonates the most. It's the same way that we've life insurance and disability income for 100 years now, right? It's the same thing with long-term care as well. Second thing, of course, today you want to assess the health of your client, make sure that they'll qualify for the plan. I'll cover this in a few moments, but this also adds a lot of value in figuring out which product to use. The third thing that we're going to take you through is how to understand the client's ability to pay for the plan. And again, I think this is where the hybrid plans have done very well, is they've identified sources that the clients aren't using in the most cost-effective way. It used to be that, the single premium hybrid options would look for a CD or a money market that was earning very low rates of return, and they'd say, why don't we just reposition that asset to pay for the long-term care risk? Because perhaps that's why you have that in place anyway as a rainy day fund. We can do the same thing with traditional long-term care. I'm going to show you an income and an asset-based approach as we go through this presentation. Fourth thing, as I mentioned, is it's very critical early on to help the client set expectations as to what they want to spend. Let them choose what they want to spend, but help guide them as to what that right number is for their situation, and then make sure you meet the budget, especially early on. Quote conservatively and upgrade it later. Just make sure that they have a good experience in terms of price, because, again, that's the number one concern. And then finally, and I do this at the very end, we look at the cost of care survey, and we say, what would the plan that we just did for you meet in terms of the full cost of care or maybe even partial cost of care in different care settings? I know that the old approach was to take the cost of care survey and use that to determine the initial daily benefit. I see a lot of long-term care experts using that approach still today. I think it's much more effective to start from the budget and then show them what the shortfall is if there's a shortfall, and let them decide if they want to pay for some of the risk or all of the risk. Just keep in mind that you don't have to do 100% risk transfer. And again, people aren't buying this because they think that it's too expensive. They do a partial risk transfer. Virtually anyone can afford some type of long-term care plan. So we're going to go through some pre-qualification steps to really meet up with that 5-step process. The first thing, as you know, you need to understand what their needs and desires are. So just ask questions. I know many of you out there do this. But don't argue with your clients. Don't try to convince them of whether they should buy traditional long-term care or hybrid long-term care. Just ask them what they're looking to achieve with their plan. If they don't initially give you an answer that you feel like is the real answer, just say, in addition to that, is there anything else that you're concerned about? Because what we found, and this has been around for a very, very long time, most people don't give their real objection with the first question. In fact, when they did this survey, I would say 70 years ago, okay, I'm taking this from a very old survey, they found that almost 2/3 of the time, the real objection is the second thing that they say. So if they don't initially say that they're worried about cost, a lot of times it really is the main concern. They're just not telling you that right away. So make sure you ask those questions. You'll find out a lot of information about the client, and you as the long-term care expert can help them design the customized plan to meet their needs, which is really going to get them to put a plan in place. Second thing is we medically pre-qualify everybody. The reason we do that, of course, is because we want to make sure that they're going to qualify for the plan that we're going to present to them, but also because there are so many different options today when we think about modern long-term care planning. It could be a different type of product. It could be an annuity long-term care product. It could be a short-term care product. We have plans to meet most people's health issues. There's even plans out there now that if you're already on claim, you can get a plan for a client. So if you know their health, it actually drives you towards the optimal solution for the client. The healthier they are, typically, the more value they get from their plan, and the healthiest folks typically can get traditional long-term care, which dollar for dollar can give them the most bang for the buck. And again, I'll show you how that works in a few moments, but make sure you don't skip this step. The second step, of course, is to financially pre-qualify them. This is new for a lot of folks out there in the long-term care world, maybe not used to as much asking about clients' income and assets. We see this a lot with the financial planner world. It's very important that you get a picture of the client's financials, and then you ask them what their income and assets, what they design those assets to be used for. Because you don't want to propose that they use their income or assets for long-term care insurance until you understand if there's another need in place for using those funds. Once you really understand where the idle assets are, the things that they really don't have a plan for, then you can begin to help them visualize using those income or assets for the long-term care insurance plan. The other nice thing about figuring out the client's financial situation first is it helps you figure out what is really their budget. You know, even if they have loads of wealth, it doesn't necessarily mean they want to spend a lot of money on long-term care insurance. A lot of people became wealthy because they've been savers all their life, okay? They're not visualizing why they need to spend this kind of money. Again, we can help work them through the process as to why it's good financial value. So I'm not going to cover this in too much more detail, but just keep in mind the reason that NGL's in the marketplace and hopefully here to stay for a long time is that they are a prudent underwriter. They're not dissimilar from some of the other traditional carriers out there. It's going to be a similar underwriting style. But because we do this type of underwriting, it actually allows us to offer affordable premiums and possibly better premium stability. So we can't guarantee the rates for traditional long-term care, but we think it's less likely to have a rate increase today. And if it happens, it'll probably be a lower magnitude if it does happen. So again, we can set better expectations. A lot of clients still might say they want guarantees, and that's okay too. We can offer guarantees, again, because the plans are more sustainable today. We have a single premium option, and single premium is a guaranteed premium. So if they want a guaranteed premium, and you say, hey, traditional long-term care doesn't have that, actually we do have that. We have the ability to pay all the premiums in one lump sum, and therefore they can never have a rate increase with that option. We also have a 10-pay option, and that's even more popular than the single premium. It lets you spread your premiums over the first 10 years, which helps to mitigate the concern of rate increase, because once you pay your 10th premium, you're fully paid up in the policy, and premiums are due. So again, it helps to take away these objections that we find in long-term care. Now we're going to talk about it a little bit more, but we have other options on the plan that take away the use it or lose it with the return of premium. We have something called a cash surrender feature. If the client's worried about running out of benefits, we also have lifetime benefits available. So virtually all the big picture features we have, and the reason we can offer all of these things is because of the prudent underwriting. Okay, so that's the key thing with the plan. Now, one other advantage is if you work in the worksite market, we have an employer group plan as well, and as I mentioned, there is no minimum participation requirement in most states except for Ohio, where you need 2 people. Usually we're actually looking at one-person employer group cases with the business owner and or their spouse. We're also looking at key executive plans, and these are coming through the door every day. Take a look at these. I'll show you very briefly at the end of the opportunity here, but if you are a business owner, there are some significant tax deductions that are potentially available. Again, you're going to need to talk to the client's tax advisor, but I'll show you how those work, and if you want to cover some more case studies, those on a follow-up webinar. So I'm not going to show you the underwriting for NGL because I want to get into some of the other main topics. Just keep in mind what to expect. We do get medical records and prescription drugs for everybody. Typically, it's not that invasive, though. Age 65 and under, it's usually just a phone interview, and over age 65, it's a face-to-face exam. But that's really all of the client is really experiencing. So don't be afraid of the underwriting just because it's prudent. It doesn't mean that it's invasive. But again, we tend to look for clients that are between 40 and 65 that are proactive about their long-term care needs. We also have a pre-qualification form that you can download from the website. We're an open book at NGL with what to expect from underwriting. There's a detailed underwriting guide. You can actually talk or email the underwriters directly whenever you'd like. So just make sure that you do your homework and figure out the client's health in advance. So let's go into the financial pre-qualification a little bit more, and then we'll talk about the product and a little bit of the asset and the income-based approaches to this. First thing is, as I mentioned, it's never about your client's income or assets until you know what the client's income or assets are going to be used for. By the way, if you're having trouble with the audio, just let me know. I'll call back in. I see there's a note about that. Lawrence, let me know. So first thing to do is to identify the funding source. Once you do that, it's going to become either an income-based plan, which might be a lifetime premium option, or an asset-based plan, which might be a single-pay or a 10-pay option. So when we look at these funding approaches, we'll link them up to some different plan design features. The third thing you'll want to consider is what is your client's goals? What is their risk tolerance? You know, when you're a financial planner, you ask these risk tolerance questions. And for long-term care, you might figure out that they are concerned about not getting at least their premium back, which might lead you to a hybrid approach. That's kind of a risk tolerance question. So you can ask some questions related to financial planning, or if you're a financial planner or working with one, you can help figure out which feature is right based on their goals there. So I'm going to jump into the long-term care product now and show you some of the features that allow us to create solutions that are very unique in the marketplace. The first thing is the joint policy design. And just as a kind of a personal story, I'm in Las Vegas today. My grandmother actually passed away yesterday. I don't feel sorry for her. She had a great long life. She actually owned an insurance agency, and she actually owned long-term care insurance coverage. So I was able to see this firsthand this past week, the value of long-term care planning. Her and my grandfather, who also predeceased her, owned a joint policy. They bought it in the 90s. They bought it with a lot of the features that I'm going to show you today. They had lifetime benefits on their plan. They had full return of premium on their plan, so they kind of had the hybrid approach. They actually deducted the premiums through their insurance agency as a business expense, okay, that business owner idea. My grandparents actually owned this plan, and they lived it, and I saw the effect of it. And what it did is it really saved our family, okay, against the consequences of my father and my mother having to take care of my grandfather and grandmother. They were actually both able to have a full-time health care aide in their home to take care of them. And, of course, it saved them a lot of money, but, of course, the peace of mind was really important. Like this product that we're looking at today, which we've offered for many years with different carriers, the reason we've designed it the way we've done is because this works. The joint policy design is a very cost-effective way to get coverage. Now, in addition to that, again, in today's marketplace, a lot of people are not necessarily buying lifetime benefits. They're buying a shorter benefit period. We actually have a rider on the plan that's called a shared benefit amount rider, but it works a little differently than the other carriers. It actually offers a third pool of benefits, and it's a very cost-effective plan. So I'm going to show you how this compares to some of the competitors in a moment here, but keep in mind this is one of our most popular features, and if you take a budget-based approach, you're going to want to usually start off with a limited benefit period with a couple, add the third pool rider, and then we'll find out how we can work up from there. So I'm going to show you an income-based approach, okay? And when we talk about income-based approaches, you were time premium payment options. In order to fund long-term care, you might find clients that are going to fund it from their stocks or their bonds. So think about dividends or coupons from their tax-exempt munis or things that they own as investments, right? And those cash flow sources to pay for long-term care insurance premiums. We sometimes think about if they're working still, paying the premiums out of their earned income. Okay, so that might be their salary or their bonus or something coming out of what they're earning while they're employed. And we also think about their retirement income, because once they retire and they're paying a lifetime premium, they're oftentimes needed to think about how to fund this out of retirement funds. So IRAs or 401ks or RMDs, that are required. Think about different funding sources to fund long-term care. When you ask those questions of the client, you're going to stumble upon different ideas for how to create the right plan for the client based on their funding needs. So let's pretend that we have a couple, and I'm going to choose a couple that is going to spend $3,250 of combined premium for the two of them. And again, when we talked about the average premium today, it was $2,500 per person, so that would be about $5,000. So this is actually a more affordable plan than the average premium that's purchased today. And I'm going to show you this dashboard, and if you look at the screen, you see this pie chart or half of a pie chart here. And what it is it's part of our software that we call Benefits Buddy, and we can kind of cover the software at the end here. But I want to show you what this dashboard represents. we're looking at a couple, and we're going to be planning at age 55, and we want to plan for when it matters most, okay? And for this couple, we're going to choose age 85. You can choose age 80 or age 90 or whatever you think is most relevant based on the client's longevity history and their family history and things like that. So that means they're going to pay a lifetime premium. In this case, it's $32.55, and they're going to pay those premiums over 30 years until they're 85, okay, when we're picturing their plan, which is a little under $100,000 of premium they're going to pay into the plan. Now, on the benefit side, what we've purchased for them is a 3-year plan for each of them with the shared care rider, which from this competitor is actually a shared care where they use each other's benefits, okay, so they're going to tap into each other's benefits. There's no third pool in this plan. We're looking at the monthly benefit at age 85. I took the monthly benefit divided by 30, okay, so just to make it a daily, so we can compare it to the NGL plan here in a moment. It's going to be substantial. This is over $10,000 a month when you look at the plan at age 85. And the total pool of benefits, if you multiply all the numbers together, you get over $800,000 of total coverage for those two people. So what this means is that if they paid in $100,000, but they have benefits of over $800,000, that's over 8 to 1 on their money that they put into their plan. So it's a great design in terms of getting value for the clients, but I want to show you potentially an even better option for the client based on their budget. On the left-hand side here, you can look at the EssentialLTC plan, okay? It's the same $3,200 premium, and again, we're using that target funding approach, income-based planning here. Approximately the same premiums paid over the 30-year period, so a little under $100,000. But for the cost for NGL, we can actually buy them a 5-year plan, and we can add on that third pool of benefits, which gives them an additional 5 years if either one of them runs out of their initial pool. So they have a shared 5-year pool. That means that they have up to a total of 15 years of coverage for the two people. And when you multiply all those numbers together, okay, same benefit, but because of the longer benefit periods in that third pool, we have over $2 million of protection. So, you know, NGL really has a sweet spot with those couples and with that third pool rider, and you can see it side by side. This is the most popular traditional long-term care on the market today. I know you guys are very familiar with it. With their shared care rider, this is the NGL plan with the NGL shared care rider. You can see it's well over 2 times, almost 3 times as much protection for those healthier couples. So you'll want to take a look at that. Now, when the clients see the value that I just showed you, in this case it was over 20 to 1 in terms of the amount of protection for their dollar, sometimes they ask the question, can I buy more of the coverage? So at that point, after you've met the objection or the concern about budget, you can work up from there to look at lifetime benefits. You can look at higher daily benefit amounts. You can look at longer benefit periods and things like that. So keep in mind, this is only the starting point of the plan. If you believe that the cost of care is higher in their area, it's okay to start off lower, co-insurance. Think of it like co-insurance or partial coverage, and to work up towards the full cost of care. Now, we also have different riders that kind of add on to the story here. So, for example, if instead of a lifetime premium payment, the client wants to pay their premiums up front so they don't have to worry about rate increases, for example, we have the single pay 10-year premium payment options. But in addition to the ability to take away the fear of rate increases, they do a few other things. They lead to some other planning approaches. And I'm going to show you that we can do the return of premium riders. And I'm not going to cover them in detail. Again, this is a high-level presentation, and we can cover these in detail. But this allows you to create the hybrid story. So if you have a single pay or a 10-year premium option, you can create a plan that mitigates the risk of rate increases. But in addition to that, if they want traditional long-term care, they can have it, but they can also have a hybrid approach. And we offer this through one of a few different return of premium riders. The basic concept is that they get 100% of their premiums back upon the death of the insured or second to die if it's the joint plan. And that means that if they don't use their long-term care benefits, they get all their premiums paid back to their beneficiary. And it creates a plan that's not use it or lose it. So again, we hear, of course, that traditional long-term care, that's use it or lose it. Not necessarily. If you add the return of premium rider, it creates a situation that they get benefits, whether they need the long-term care, but even if they don't use the long-term care, they can get that premium back. In addition to that, we have a version of it which has an S at the end, which stands for surrender, which allows them to get up to 80% cash back if they want to surrender the plan. So it gives them liquidity if they want to quit the plan. So we have a return of premium, a limited return of premium that's reduced by long-term care claims paid if they use the long-term care. We have a full return of premium, and again, this is the one my grandparents actually owned. They use all their long-term care benefits, and then they also still get all their premiums back. We have a few different versions of this, but just remember that these are the hybrid-style options that we have on the NGL plan. So the point is that there can always be a solution for any client situation. You can build a traditional plan, or if the client says, I'm concerned about paying this money and not getting anything back, again, the number 2 objection out there, you can add on the return of premium features and the cash surrender option, and you can build them a plan that looks like a hybrid-style plan. So this leads us into another type of planning, which you'll see, and you probably heard this term before, which is called asset-based long-term care planning. We see this with the hybrid plans, and they involve moving money from an asset to pay for the long-term care insurance premium. Now, of course, because we have the single premium option and the return of premium features, you can do asset-based planning even on a traditional long-term care policy. One of the main advantages of doing it on traditional long-term care is that you also can take advantage of some of the things in the tax code. For example, if you own a business, this is still considered long-term care, and it might be tax deductible for a business. So again, I don't want to give you tax advice on this call. That's my disclaimer. You'll need to talk to their tax advisor, but if you want to go into a situation with the business, you can actually do a hybrid-style plan that's tax deductible through a business as well because of the way we've designed Essential LTC to be on a traditional long-term care policy. So when we talk about asset-based funding, we're talking about different sources of funding. And when you ask those financial pre-qualification questions that we talked about earlier, you're going to find out that clients have cash, a rainy day fund sitting out there. Sometimes they call them cash reserves, or they'll be sitting in a money market fund, and they won't really know what to do with those funds except that they're using it for a rainy day, or maybe they're using it for their long-term care plan because they don't have long-term care insurance. You'll also find out that clients have existing coverage with annuities or life insurance, and you can actually use those funds because of the Pension Protection Act to fund their long-term care insurance plan too. So at the beginning of the presentation that you have with your clients, when you're talking to them about the long-term care options, tell them that you can help them in one of 2 different ways. You can transfer the long-term care risk with a very high-quality long-term care policy, the one that we've just talked about with Essential LTC, but don't limit yourself to that. Remember that you can also self-insure, but you can self-insure in a better way with assets you already own, longer and better than you're doing now. And so this number 2, this has been a more popular way to present long-term care with the hybrid plans recently, but it doesn't mean that you can't use it with traditional long-term care as well. So ask your client, do you mind if I show you both of these different options? And what you're going to find is that some people are going to gravitate towards number 1, and some people are going to gravitate towards number 2. Okay, but we can do both of them. So let's take a look at an example of asset-based funding with Essential LTC to give you an idea of how this might work. Let's pretend the client has roughly $100,000, okay? The numbers might be a little bit higher, a little bit lower than that, but let's say that's around the ballpark. And they're looking to self-insure the risk, and we hear that as an objection a lot. We want to compare that to transferring the risk for long-term care. Again, I'm going to use my dashboard here, but instead of this being a long-term care insurance plan, I'm going to call this self-insuring. It's still an age 55 couple, and they're still planning for age 85, but if they put $100,000 in an investment, and they earn 5% compounded for the next 30 years, so I assumed a 5% investment return, and then they pay 15% on the gains, like let's say there's long-term capital gains, they'll have about $450,000 pre-tax at age 85 for their long-term care insurance fund, let's say, or long-term care fund. And after tax, they'll have a little under $400,000 once they pay the government for those gains on their investments. Now, when we look at this and we compare this to the hybrid version of the Essential LTC plan, we can do the same thing. And we can show them potentially a better way to self-insure. $100,000 premium pays for coverage, a joint plan design. I use the 555 that shared care rider. You might give them $1.6 million of protection for the 2 of them. So nearly 4 times as much coverage as their self-insurance plan. And if they don't use the long-term care, they have 100% return of premium. So all those premiums go back to their beneficiary if they don't use long-term care. If they want to get out of the policy and surrender the plan, they have up to 80%. The full 80% is available after the year. So this is the live, die, quit story that you see in hybrid plans compared to self-insuring, except we're using a traditional long-term option. So look at this and think about this as asset-based funding, because we're moving an asset, $100,000, to pay for the long-term care risk with the ability to do it in a more efficient way, potentially. Now, I'm going to show you two different options. You don't have to do the hybrid option when it comes to asset-based planning. This is the hybrid that we just looked at with EssentialLTC. So you can see what the daily benefit would be, 85, the total benefit pools, and the return of premium and the cash surrender option. But we could also do a traditional plan, and this is what $100,000, again, roughly $100,000 would buy them without the return of premium options. We can get a lot more long-term care coverage. So rather than telling the client which to prefer, and we see this all the time, and I talk to long-term care experts all the time, and I find that they fall into two camps. They're either people that are hybrid advocates because they talk about, oh, the hybrid world's growing, and that's what people really want, and they don't want the traditional. That's nonsense. But I also hear the same thing from traditional advocates saying, oh, those hybrid plans, they don't provide as much value. That's also nonsense. The real fact of it is that some people prefer option A and some people prefer option B. So don't limit yourself. Offer them both. The most common quote that we do at NGL with the EssentialLTC plan is we take a target budget and we say, would you prefer the hybrid version of it or would you prefer the traditional version of it? You have a lot of different options here, but again, that's one that you can present to the client, and what you're going to find out is they're going to often choose one or the other, and they're going to choose one of these and get their plan in place, which is, of course, the key thing. Now, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but we can compare NGL to the hybrid options as well. So I took this is an indemnity hybrid product just to show you a single premium of $150,000 for a couple, what they would get under their indemnity benefits from a hybrid plan, in this case the 6-year and 6-year structure because that's the sweet spot. And they get a little bit more death benefit from the hybrid plans because they're a life insurance-based product. This is what NGL looks like side by side with the hybrid-based option, the return of premium. Again, less death benefit because it's just the return of premium, but a lot more long-term care benefits. This is paid reimbursement. You can do the side-by-side comparisons with any of the long-term care options. If you're just running into a situation with an advisor using an acceleration of death benefit product where the maximum they can get is the amount of the death benefit, of course you can show them a very efficient way to get a lot more quote-unquote leverage on their money with traditional long-term care. So take a look at this. I'll show you the Benefit Buddy software here at the very end before we open it up for questions. By the way, if you do have questions, feel free to type them in the right-hand side of the panel, and we will take them at the end with the last few minutes of the call. We talked about a lot of different approaches and a lot of different sweet spots, income-based funding and asset-based funding. Asset-based funding also lends itself to the Pension Protection Act, and so many of you are familiar with this, the ability to take a life insurance policy and turn it into a life insurance policy with a long-term care rider. What a lot of people don't know is that you can also do that with traditional long-term care, and with traditional long-term care, you can either a non-qualified life insurance policy, but also you can use a non-qualified tax-deferred annuity, and you're allowed to use either of those as a source of funding for your asset-based approach. And when you do that, you're taking an asset that might be taxable. In the case of an annuity, for example, if a client takes a distribution in the future, it's a deferred tax, but eventually they get taxed at their ordinary income tax rate, which might be 37, 40% with state taxes and that kind of thing. It could be a lot of taxes in the gains on the contract. But if you take those funds and what you're doing is you're moving the cash surrender value directly to pay the long-term care insurance premium, and you can do it as a single premium, which is why it's actually kind of a new and a modern idea today. You can use the benefits to pay for long-term care still tax-free. So you're moving a potential tax liability for the client and you're using it to fund potentially tax-free benefits. So it's a very powerful concept, and when you ask about the client's balance sheet and you find out about these sources of funds that they have, I want you to think, if I come across a non-qualified annuity or life insurance plan, what that means is non-qualified means it's not in the retirement vehicle like an IRA or 401k, so it's outside of a tax-qualified retirement vehicle. You can use those funds to pay for the long-term care premium. And when you talk to financial advisors about this, oftentimes they'll never have heard of this. And the reason they'll never have heard of this is because this is the first time we've had a single premium traditional product on the market since the Pension Protection Act has been available. Okay? So this is kind of a new concept for a lot of folks out there. But when you do find those annuity or life insurance policies, it's really magical to be able to create single premium long-term care plans. So keep in mind just a few parameters. The main one to remember about this is when you're using the existing annuity or life insurance policy, just make sure that they have the same owner and same insureds on that policy as the policy that they're purchasing on the long-term care side. So the ownership and insureds have to match so they can do a tax-free exchange. In addition to that, one more sales idea here is because we have the 10-pay option in particular, if you guys remember doing executive carve-outs many years ago, you can also do executive carve-outs once again, meaning that we can create tax-deductible plans for businesses. And the way it works, just at a very high level, is that if they have a C corporation, the premiums are generally tax-deductible for the business, and the benefits are still tax-free. And you can do it on any individuals you choose, which is what leads to this carve-out concept. I mean, you can carve out special plans for just the business owner, their key executives, and the spouses of any of those folks as well, and their tax-deductible premiums. But in addition to that, what's new about the plan today, and this is more of a modern approach to the executive carve-out idea, is that you're also allowed to take that tax deduction for small businesses as well, which is really powerful because there's probably about 15 times as many small businesses in the United States as there are C corporations. And those are businesses taxed as S corporations, partnerships, or maybe even sole proprietors. The only difference in terms of the tax deductibility is these are pass-through entities, so the deduction is passed through as income to their individual tax return, but you are still allowed to deduct that premium on the first dollar. Okay, it's called an above-the-line deduction. 29, it's really tiny on your screen here, but it's called a self-employed health insurance deduction. So it's the same place where they typically would deduct their health insurance premiums. You're also allowed to deduct long-term care insurance premium up to these age-based limits. The real secret and what makes this more modern today is that the age-based limits continue to increase every year. So when we look at our average 10-pay plans, especially when they hit 61 for a couple, oftentimes the full premium becomes tax deductible for 10-pay because you can deduct up to $8,300 this year and probably even more in the future if they continue to increase these limits. So just keep in mind, if you ask the client, do you own a business, and you think about that as a funding source, so think of their business checkbook, their business income as another funding source, you might find a very tax-advantaged opportunity. And again, you can work with us, and we'll show you how to design these plans for business owners, and of course we'll be engaging with their tax advisor to make sure they sign off on it and you design the plans in the right way. But we can do this for as few as one person in terms of the employer group plans. So just to recap, again, before we open this up for some questions, we have the ability to take away the major objections that we find in long-term care today. The first one being that long-term care is too expensive. The second one being that if I use it, I don't get my money back, which we have, of course, the hybrid-style options. The third one being I'm worried about long-term care because I've seen rate increases, or I'm worried about some other aspect, like I'm going to run out of coverage. We have features on this plan to address all of the major objections in a very cost-effective and valuable way. So, as I mentioned, I created a lot of those screenshots using what we call our Benefit Buddy software, which I'm showing you on the screen right now. And simply put, it's a way that you can go through and do exactly what I just did on this webinar today, which is design the plan for the client, look at what their target budget is. In this case, it's a single female who's 55. And you can create plans that meet whatever budget they're looking for. So if your client says, I want to spend, let's say, $1,000 on coverage, but they like having inflation protection, in this case 3% compounded, they like having a 5-year benefit period, for example, because they want more coverage than the 3-year plan, we can change the daily benefit amount. I'm just going to change this to $50 to hit a $1,000 budget. And this is what I would start off with if the client says, this is what I want. Don't shy away from plans that are below the cost of care just because they're not getting full coverage. Get them a plan in place first, because once they see the value of the plan, which you can see here, the total premiums and the total benefits, they'll actually like what they see and they'll actually look to raise their budget. If we have a couple, for example, and they're both looking to get coverage, it's almost like buying the female and getting the male for free. The price is actually the same for the joint plan as the female plan. The only difference is we use the older age of the two, but now they have each their own pool of benefit. If you want to add that shared benefit rider, I'm kind of zipping through these, but you can see how this works. interactively, we can show them the cost of the plan is still very low, but this is a plan for 2 people that gets them a lot of coverage. Okay? If they like what they see here, build a plan that's $3,000 or $5,000 or even more, but make sure you hone in on the budget here. You can change the parameter for when they go on claim. If you want to plan for them at age 80, just type in 80, and all the numbers will instantaneously update their new plan based on what you've done for them. So this is not yet a client-facing software, but you can download this and you can look at what is the cost of each of the features that we just went through. If you want to change this and you want to design it as a 10-pay, for example, feel free to do so. You can look at what the total cost of a 10-year premium would be over 10 years instead of the lifetime of the plan. One more tip is if you go to the projection tab, you'll find that all of the parameters you just ran will be shown here. So this is what we started off with a 10-pay plan. You can see the pool of benefits were determined. If you have any questions, this is the first place to look. In the interest of time in the webinar, I just want to kind of wrap this up and let you know. Thanks for attending it. We're going to open this up for questions. If you do have any questions, feel free to go to the web, and you can go to the NGL. You can just search for EssentialLTC, and it will actually pop up the NGL website right here. Just click on that, get your login credentials, and you can download all the webinars, all of the software, and everything we've looked at today. And why don't we go ahead and we open this up for some questions now?
Okay, the first question I have is, how do I pre-qualify a prospect?
So pre-qualification, great question. Great question. When you go into the website, the NGA website, I'm not going to log in at the moment, but you can get your login credential. You can actually go to the pre-qualification download form, which is on the website. It will be under the New Business tab. We'll send you an email with a link to this if you'd like to pre-qualify. Just fill out this form and then attach it to an email and send it to this email address, which is status@ngl-essentialltc.com. It will be right on the form. And they'll actually respond to you. The underwriter will respond to you, and you can email back and forth with any follow-up questions that you have. Just take the time to do the pre-qualification. This is NGL's form, but you can use any pre-qualification form that you're comfortable with. Just don't put the client's name on it.
Great. And do you prefer the pre-qualifications emailed, or can they go ahead and call an underwriter directly?
Whatever you're most comfortable with. Long-term care experts like to get to know the underwriters better, and you'll probably get to know our team. Oscar is maybe one of the guys you'll talk to on our underwriting side. You can call them. The number here you'll see is a toll-free number, 888-505-2332. It's right on the form here. If you prefer to write it, you can write it. If you prefer to call it in, you can call it in instead. But usually they'll respond with the answer in writing, so when you submit the case, if everything turned out as expected, you can kind of point them back to the pre-qualification if you have any concerns about that. But usually it's because we don't find out everything we need to know about the client. That's the only reason why the outcome would differ typically on the pre-qualification.
Great. Another one here is so we've got some agents requesting the copies of the slides. Is that something you can provide to us and we can go ahead and provide to the agents rather than having them go and download them? Or?
We do. You can get them in the website, but Lawrence, as a follow-up to this webinar, will send you what we call our Sweet Spots presentation, which goes through the main features of the plan. He'll send you a link, and you can download the slides from that link. Great question.
Perfect. Well, those are the only questions that are typed in, so maybe what I'll do is I'll open it up on the phone line and see if anyone has any questions they'd like to ask, okay? Hold on just one moment.
Sure.
The conference is now in talk mode. All right, are there any questions out there?
No, but it's a great product. I sure want to follow up, get more information about it.
Appreciate that.
And who do we call for the slides?
We'll be sending an email to Jen at GoldenCare, and she'll be forwarding them on to you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Are there any in-depth training on this where you could literally go through and learn how to build these, the logic behind it in a 2-day offering or 3-day offering? Is there such a thing?
Well, we call it EssentialLTC On Demand. So they're on-demand recorded trainings. And we'll send you a link with the copy of the presentation slides to the on-demand website. What it is it's 27 recorded training webinars on a lot of the topics that we covered today, how to use Benefits Buddy, how to do business owner deductions, how to do 1035 exchanges. All of those have like their own 30-minute to 1-hour training videos. That's what I would suggest first. If you do want to have somebody live to speak to, feel free to call GoldenCare or feel free to call our team and we'll walk you through it. But I would say start off with the webinar recordings and then you can kind of narrow in on which marketplace you think is most relevant for your needs.
Okay. Thank you.
Great question.
Do you have supporting information regarding the tax consequences for the business side of things as you were referring to?
We do. We're going to release, along with the new worksite unisex rates, which are going to come out probably at the end of this year, a one-page kind of tax flyer. It'd be similar to the CLTC tax guide, if you've seen that, which just talks at a high level about the tax deductibility. If you want to get more information on how it works, for example, with the return of premium options, because it gets a little bit more advanced when you're using those features, just feel free to give us a call. We'll walk you through the steps. But oftentimes the tax advisor is the one that will have to do the final opinion on it in terms of what's written for the client. So don't pretend to be a tax expert. Just engage with the tax advisor. Usually you have to educate them a little bit on how the tax works. But once they see the value for the client, they'll want to talk to you about it.
Yeah, it's nice to be able to go in and talk with confidence to the business owner and then go, hey, I'm not a tax expert, but this is my understanding. I'll be more than happy to sit down with your expert and I can give him any information he needs.
Exactly. And what you want to say to them is it's almost always better to take a tax deduction, of course, than not to take a tax deduction when you're eligible for it. So it doesn't really matter the amount of the deduction. It could be 5%. It could be as much as 45% off. And you're not going to know until you talk to their CPA and their tax advisor. But just let them know there are additional tax savings available. Once we actually start designing the plan, we can tell you exactly what they are after I work with your CPA. But it's later step in the process.
Right. I mean, you're showing them an attractive product to begin with and say, oh, by the way, there's going to be some additional savings to you. Can't tell you exactly what it's going to be, but talk to your expert and your CPA or whoever, and we'll let you know what you're going to save.
Yeah, and I'll just tell you with NGL, we have some long-term care experts out there. Of course, they know how to present long-term care insurance, but they focus specifically on the business owner market. So they just look for business owners, and there's 28 or 30 million business owners out there in the United States. So there's plenty of people out there. As long as they're profitable, they can take advantage of this. And that's all they do every day is they look for those businesses and try to design them tax-deductible plans.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right, are there any other questions? All right, if not, again, I want to thank everyone for attending. I want to thank Marc and Lawrence for coming on and sharing their product with us today. It's a great product, a lot of great advantages with that 10-pay and single-pay opportunity, along with those lifetime benefits and those shared care, that third pool of money for the shared care rider. So it's a great product. I encourage you to take a look at it. Give us a call here at GoldenCare at 800-842-7799. We'll be glad to get you licensed, get you up to speed on this product, and so on. So again, thank you all for attending, and have a great rest of your day.